The crimson sky of Valdros Prime burned with twin suns as Ethan stumbled through the crystalline canyon, his breathing ragged and desperate. Behind him, the unmistakable sound of claws scraping against stone echoed through the narrow passage. He had been running for what felt like hours, ever since his exploration pod crashed into this forsaken moon on the edge of the outer rim. Ethan's people, humans, were known throughout the galaxy as the species that refused to die. While other civilizations possessed superior technology, longer lifespans, or natural armor, humans had something else entirely: an irrational will to survive against impossible odds. Today, Ethan was about to prove why his species had earned such a reputation. The canyon opened into a vast clearing, and Ethan's heart sank. A dead end. Sheer cliff walls rose hundreds of meters on all sides with no visible escape route. He spun around just as his pursuer emerged from the shadows. Dravik was a magnificent specimen of his kind, a dwarf dragon, though dwarf was a relative term. Standing nearly 3 meters tall at the shoulder, his scaled body rippled with muscle beneath armor like plates of midnight blue. Steam rose from his nostrils as he fixed his predatory gaze on the human. To Dravik, this creature before him was nothing more than prey, small, fragile, and foolish enough to wander into his territory. Human, Dravik's voice rumbled, carried by the universal translator embedded in Ethan's suit. You trespass where you do not belong. Your kind always does. Ethan raised his hand slowly, his mind racing. His sidearm was empty, spent during his flight through the canyon. His emergency beacon was damaged in the crash. He had nothing but his wits and his body. I mean no disrespect, Ethan said, keeping his voice steady despite the terror coursing through his veins. My ship crashed. I'm just trying to survive. Dravik snorted, a small jet of flame escaping his nostrils. Survival? You speak of survival to me? My kind ruled these moons for 10,000 years before your species even reached for the stars. We know survival, human, and we know when something is too weak to deserve it. The dragon began to circle, and Ethan turned with him, keeping eye contact. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind, words from old Earth, from humanity's ancient past. When cornered, don't freeze. Move forward. You're right, Ethan said, and something in his voice made Dravik pause. Your kind has survived longer. You're stronger, faster, more powerful. But you know what humans have learned that makes us special? Dravik's eyes narrowed. What could your soft species possibly possess? We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most stubborn, the most creative, the most absolutely irrationally unwilling to accept death. Ethan's muscles tensed. We learned to do the impossible because the possible isn't enough. Dravik lunged. What happened next would be analyzed by xenobiologists for years to come. As several tons of predatory dragon launched forward, jaws wide and claws extended, Ethan did something that defied every survival instinct of every prey species in the known galaxy. He ran toward the dragon. 3 steps. 4 steps, 5, and then Ethan jumped. His timing was perfect. Born from a lifetime of gravitational adaptation and a species-wide obsession with physical challenges. As Dravik's massive head dipped to catch him, Ethan planted his foot on the dragon's snout and pushed off with every ounce of strength his human legs could muster. Time seemed to slow. Ethan sailed over Dravik's head, his body arcing through the air in a perfect parabola. He could feel the heat rising from the dragon's scales, could see the shock in those ancient reptilian eyes as the dwarf dragon's own momentum carried him forward. Unable to stop, Ethan landed in a roll behind Dravik, his human body absorbing the impact with flexibility that most species lacked. He was already running before Dravik could turn around, sprinting toward a section of the cliff wall he had noticed during their conversation, a series of narrow ledges. Too small for a dragon, but perfect for a human climber. Impossible. Dravik's roar shook the canyon, a mixture of rage and something else, something that might have been respect. Ethan didn't look back. His hands found holds in the crystalline rock, and he began to climb with the desperate efficiency of a species that had conquered mountains on a dozen worlds. Behind him, Dravik could only watch, too large to follow, too proud to call for help. Halfway up the cliff face, Ethan finally paused, his chest heaving. He looked down at the dwarf dragon, who stared back with an expression that transcended species, a recognition of something primal and true. You humans, Dravik called up, and his voice carried no anger now, only a grudging acknowledgement. You have no right to survive. You are weak, small, short-lived. And yet we do, Ethan finished, allowing himself a tired smile. That's what makes us human. By the time Ethan reached the top of the cliff and found his way to the emergency beacon station, word of the encounter had already begun to spread through the communications networks. The human who jumped over a dragon. The soft species that refused to be prey. In the taverns and trading posts across Valdros Prime, they would tell the story for generations. And every time they did, they would remember why humans, despite all their weaknesses, had earned their place among the stars. Because when faced with the impossible, humans didn't ask if they could survive, they just did.